He was Diddy's trusted bodyguard, until his brother died mysteriously. Now, he's breaking his silence, and what he reveals could shatter everything. He stood up slowly, like the weight of the moment was pressing on every joint in his body. The courtroom was silent, not out of respect but tension. Every eye turned to him, the bailiff, the jury, the press, and the defendant. Sean P. Diddy Combs sat at the table, calm, composed, almost bored, like he'd heard it all before. The man cleared his throat, voice shaking just enough to betray the storm inside him. "I stayed quiet for 12 years, he said, "but my brother didn't deserve what happened to him." A ripple moved through the room. The word brother hit harder than any accusation. His hands trembled slightly, but he kept going, locking eyes with the jury. He just wanted out, that's all. He didn't threaten anyone, didn't run his mouth. He just wanted a life outside all of this. His voice cracked at the end, and for a second, he looked like he might sit back down. But he didn't. He stared straight ahead, past the judge, past the lawyers, into the past he'd spent over a decade trying to bury. "They said it was an accident," he continued, "that he swerved off the road. But I know better. I recognize the guy behind the wheel. He worked for us. Worked for him." He tilted his head toward Diddy, who didn't move, didn't blink, just stared forward with the stillness of a man who knew exactly how to keep control. Then came the final blow. "I made a promise to my brother that if anything ever happened to him, I'd tell the truth, no matter what it cost." Cut to black. Voiceover begins. "It started long before that night, back when I still believed loyalty could protect you. But I learned the hard way. Loyalty was just another cage." Before he ever stepped into that courtroom, before the cameras and microphones and whispered threats, he was just a body in the background. 6'3", quiet, strong, trained to see everything and say nothing. His name was Darrell Brooks. He didn't come from money or fame. He came from the east side of Baltimore, where survival was a job in itself. By the time he was 25, Darrell had already served a tour in Iraq, buried his mother, and helped raise his younger brother Marcus. He'd seen death, fear, and desperation, but nothing prepared him for life inside the machine that was Sean P. Diddy Combs. It started simple. A friend of a friend had an opening for a security detail gig. Darrell didn't ask too many questions. It paid well, and after years of watching his family struggle, money meant peace. Or so he thought. He was good at what he did. Watchful, silent, never out of line. Within 6 months, he was moved up the ladder. Not just crowd control or club security anymore. Now he was part of the circle. The circle wasn't official. No badges, no business cards. It was an understanding. A group of men who handled things quietly. Escorts, cleanup, intimidation. Not violence per se, but the kind of presence that made people think twice before saying the wrong thing. And if someone did say the wrong thing, well, sometimes they disappeared for a while, sometimes longer. Diddy never gave direct orders. He didn't have to. He spoke in coded glances and loaded phrases. "Handle that. Make it go away. I don't want to hear about this again." The meaning was always clear, and everyone obeyed. Darrell never saw himself as dirty. Not at first. He told himself he was keeping things organized, keeping people safe. But the longer he stayed, the more the lines blurred. Artists weren't just signed. They were owned. Contracts came with chains, some literal. Drugs moved at private parties. Money exchanged hands in back rooms. Everyone had a role. Producers, managers, even the occasional cop. And Darrell? He kept his mouth shut and his ears open. But then came Marcus. Marcus was 19 when Darrell got him a soft gig. Assistant to an assistant. Mostly errands and tech support. It was supposed to be safe. A way to get him out of the neighborhood, into something better. At first, it worked. Marcus was smart, focused, always eager to learn. But he wasn't like Daryl. He asked questions. He wanted to know why cash was being dropped at 3 a.m., why someone who was at a party last week suddenly got flown out and never returned, why the cleaning crew was never allowed into certain rooms. Daryl warned him, "Keep your head down, do your job." But Marcus had that fire, the kind that doesn't die quietly. One night, Marcus came to Daryl shaken. He'd overheard a conversation, Diddy talking with someone over the phone, angry, fast-paced. He mentioned a name Marcus recognized, a young rapper who'd recently stepped out of line over royalties. That rapper disappeared 2 days later. "I don't think this is just business," Marcus said. Daryl felt his stomach twist. He knew the dangers. He'd seen what happened to people who dug too deep. "I'm telling you, bro. I think we need to walk away," Marcus said. But walking away wasn't simple. Not from Diddy's world. Not when you'd seen what they'd seen. And Marcus, he was already in too deep. A week later, Marcus missed a check-in. Then a day. Then 2. His phone went straight to voicemail. Daryl filed a missing persons report. 2 days later, police found Marcus's body in a wrecked sedan off a rural road in New Jersey. "Accidental death," they said. "Lost control in the rain." But Daryl knew better. The bruises didn't match a seatbelt impact. The airbags hadn't deployed. And the man allegedly driving the truck that hit Marcus, Daryl recognized him. He'd worked security at Diddy's Miami estate. That's when everything changed. Daryl wanted to burn it all down, but he knew how deep it went. Who was on the payroll? Who was paid to look away? So he did what he never thought he'd do. He vanished. He left the city, changed his name, moved 3 states away. He worked night shifts, cash jobs, anything off the grid. For years, he lived in silence. But grief doesn't vanish. It waits. And every night, Marcus's voice echoed in his head. "I think we need to walk away." Grief can freeze a man, but guilt keeps him awake. Daryl hadn't slept more than 4 straight hours in years. Every time his eyes closed, Marcus was there. Not as a ghost, not as a nightmare, but as a reminder of the call he didn't make, the warnings he ignored, the silence he chose. He lived in a small town outside Pittsburgh now, used a fake name, worked construction, kept his head down. No social media, no paper trail, just gray mornings and quiet nights. It wasn't a life. It was a sentence, but it kept him alive. Until the envelope arrived. It wasn't mailed, no postage, just left on the doorstep of the trailer he rented behind an old junkyard. Brown, unmarked. Inside was a flash drive and a single photo. Marcus, smiling in the background of a party Daryl vaguely remembered from years ago. The handwriting on the back was shaky, but clear. He knew. Daryl stared at the flash drive for hours before plugging it in. Hands trembling, stomach turning. He expected surveillance footage, maybe blackmail. Instead, it was Marcus, recording himself in what looked like a hotel room. The lighting was poor. The sound was muffled. But the voice was unmistakable. "If you're seeing this," Marcus said, "it means I didn't make it out." He paused, eyes darting off screen like he thought someone might be listening. "I know too much, and I know they know I know." Daryl felt his throat tighten. "I saw something last week. Diddy met with a guy from, I don't even know, DEA maybe. They talked about someone being a problem. Next day, that guy's apartment caught fire. Nobody even asked questions." Marcus leaned in closer to the camera. "They think no one's watching. They think everyone's scared. And maybe they're right. But someone's got to tell the truth." He paused again, and for a moment, Daryl swore Marcus was looking right at him. "You told me to keep my head down, D. But I can't. Not if it means being part of this." The video ended there. No goodbyes, no names. Just a dead screen and a heartbeat in Daryl's ears louder than anything he'd heard in years. He replayed the video 10 times that night. Then, he packed a bag. Daryl didn't head back to Baltimore. That would be suicide. But he made calls. Careful, encrypted, traced through burner phones and pay-as-you-go Wi-Fi. Through a veterans network, he found someone who knew someone in D.C., a lawyer named Hannah Ortiz. She didn't work with celebrities. She worked with whistleblowers. They met in a church parking lot in Pennsylvania. Daryl didn't trust anyone, but she brought no briefcase, no team. Just a recorder and a promise. Whatever you say stays between us, until you're ready. He told her everything. How the security operation really worked. The deliveries, the cash, the people who went missing, the accidents. And of course, Marcus. When she saw the flash drive, her face went pale. This could open federal charges, she said. But it could also get you killed. Daryl nodded. I've already been dying, just slower. For the first time in a decade, he felt something close to purpose. Took nearly 8 months, depositions, sworn affidavits, quiet meetings with people who said they used to be in the circle too. The case built itself, brick by painful brick. And eventually, the Department of Justice got involved. But P. Diddy wasn't just a man. He was a brand, a business, an empire. Taking him down meant breaking a system that protected him. So they went slow. And then came the leak. An assistant in the prosecution's office got greedy. Sold a tip to a tabloid. Former Diddy bodyguard preparing to testify in federal court. The article ran the next morning. No names. But the damage was done. 3 days late. He watched from a gas station down the road. His truck parked behind a dumpster. Heart pounding as flames lit up the night sky. No more shadows. He called Hannah. I'm done hiding, he said. Get me in that courtroom. By the time Daryl stepped into the courtroom, the air had already thickened with expectation. The media had descended like vultures on a carcass. News vans lined the street. Paparazzi yelled questions he ignored. The guards had to push back the crowd just so he could enter. Inside, it was colder, sterile, controlled, but not silent. The buzz of whispers floated through the gallery like static. Everyone knew who he was now. The bodyguard who turned. The man who held P. Diddy's secrets. The betrayer. The whistleblower. The brother. He walked past rows of spectators, reporters and anonymous eyes, toward the witness stand. His boots felt like bricks. His hands wouldn't stop sweating, but his face was stone. At the defense table, Diddy sat in a tailored navy suit, arms folded, lips pursed in that half-smile he used for photo ops. His legal team, 4 attorneys deep, watched Daryl like he was a bomb with a timer they couldn't defuse. He didn't look at them. He looked straight at the judge, swore the oath, sat down, and for the first time in 12 years, he began to speak publicly. I started working for Mr. Combs in 2008, Daryl said. At first it was basic security, nightclubs, concerts, travel logistics. But as time went on, I was brought into more sensitive roles. He paused. I saw money moved without accounting. I saw parties where underage girls were flown in and kept off the books. I saw drugs distributed by staff who were paid to disappear after. The courtroom shifted. Murmurs. Pens scratching furiously. One of the jurors looked down, visibly unsettled. And then, Daryl said, voice quieter, there was my brother. He recounted Marcus's story with brutal precision. No embellishments, just facts, dates, names. He explained how Marcus started noticing things, how he tried to leave, how he ended up dead. I filed a missing persons report. They called it an accident. But the man who caused that crash, I'd worked with him. He was on Mr. Combs' personal payroll. Do you have proof of that? The prosecutor asked. Yes, Daryl said. Bank transfers, employment logs, and the flash drive. The prosecutor held it up for the court to see. A tiny silver rectangle. So small, yet carrying more weight than anyone in the room realized. Then came the cross-examination. The defense attorney, sharp suit, slicked back hair, stood and approached slowly, like a man about to pet a growling dog. "Mr. Brooks, let's talk about motive," he said. "You've been off the grid for a decade. No witnesses to verify your story. No evidence that directly links my client to your brother's death." Darryl didn't flinch. "You're right," he said. "No cameras in the back rooms. No confessions on tape. Just a pattern." "A pattern?" the lawyer echoed. "People who speak out go missing. People who ask questions get silenced. You want names? I gave them. You want documents? I brought them. But the pattern speaks louder than any one file," the lawyer scoffed. "You expect the jury to believe a flash drive and a theory?" Darryl leaned forward, eyes cold. "Number, I expect them to believe a brother." The courtroom fell silent. The judge cleared his throat, asked the defense to proceed. But something had shifted. A tone. A truth that couldn't be unseen. In the gallery, a woman began to cry, softly. Then another juror looked away, jaw tight. Even the reporters, who usually fed off drama, sat frozen, pens still in their hands. Because Darryl wasn't just testifying, he was bleeding. On the stand, with every word, he cut himself open and showed the world what was inside: regret, fury, grief, and an unshakable need for justice. That night, the story broke across every major network. Clips of Darryl's testimony went viral. Former Bodyguard testifies against Sean Diddy Combs. Brother of victim speaks out. Flash drive could be key to federal charges. Pundits argued over credibility. Lawyers debated liability. Fans were split. Some called him brave. Others, a traitor. Darryl didn't care. He sat alone in his hotel room, lights off, watching the same 30 seconds on repeat. Marcus, on the flash drive, saying, "If you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it out." But now his voice was being heard by millions. And Darryl wasn't done yet. The days after Darryl's testimony felt like the world had cracked open. P. Diddy's legal team went on full damage control. Press releases, interviews, denials. Every hour brought a new spin. No evidence of wrongdoing. A former disgruntled employee. Unverified claims. But the more they spoke, the more the public turned away. Because Darryl hadn't come in with anger. He came in with truth. And truth doesn't flinch. The prosecution moved fast. Federal investigators reopened cold files linked to Diddy's inner circle, overdoses, assaults, and accidents that had been swept under expensive rugs. A quiet investigation that had crawled for years suddenly roared to life. The flash drive was authenticated. The payroll records matched. A background check on the man who drove the truck that killed Marcus revealed connections to a private security firm used by Diddy's team for over a decade. And then came the other witnesses. First, a former event planner. Then, a studio engineer. And then, shockingly, a retired NYPD officer who admitted he'd taken money to bury a noise complaint after a violent altercation at a Diddy-hosted party in 2013. Each new voice echoed the same theme: fear, control, silence. But no voice hit harder than Darryl's. While the legal machine gathered momentum, Darryl found himself caught in a different storm. Not legal, not even physical, emotional. He couldn't walk down the street without being recognized. Half the country called him a hero. The other half called him a liar. His old friends started calling, not to check in, but to beg him to stop. "You're messing with powerful people, D. They don't forget. They don't forgive." He got anonymous texts. No threats, just reminders. Photos of his old neighborhood, of Marcus's grave, of his trailer before it burned. But he didn't back down. He'd already paid with silence once. He wouldn't do it again. He stayed in government protection, hotel to hotel, burner phone to burner phone. Ortiz, his lawyer, kept him moving. Every day brought new subpoenas, new interviews, new requests for just a few more details. It wore him down. One morning he snapped. "I gave you everything," he told Ortiz, eyes bloodshot. "What more do you want?" She didn't yell. She didn't push. She just looked at him and said, "Not for me, for Marcus." That shut him up. The case exploded. What started as one man's testimony became a sprawling investigation into the culture around Diddy, one that blurred the line between celebrity and criminality. Every lawyer on TV had an opinion. Every ex-employee had a story. But Daryl had something no one else did. Motive. He wasn't after money. He hadn't signed a book deal. He wasn't tweeting for clout. He was just a brother trying to keep a promise. That made him dangerous. And that made Diddy scared. Then came the leak that changed everything. An internal memo from the DA's office surfaced online. Redacted, but revealing. It listed Daryl as the primary witness in what they now classified as a potential RICO case. Organized criminal activity under the guise of entertainment. The media frenzy tripled overnight. Now it wasn't just about Marcus. It was about everything. Contracts, threats, laundered money, hidden assaults. Diddy's team responded with a move Daryl didn't expect. They offered a settlement. Through Ortiz, they offered 7 figures and lifelong anonymity. Daryl didn't even blink. He told her, "If I take their money, my brother stays dead for nothing." She nodded. She already knew his answer, but she had to ask. Back in court, the defense tried one last trick: discredit the brother. They pulled up Daryl's military record, honorable, but with PTSD notes. They questioned his isolation, his use of burner phones, even implied he might have created the flash drive himself. Daryl just sat there, stone still. When it was his turn to speak again, he asked the judge for a final statement. He stood, faced the jury, and said, "I didn't come here to win. I came here so no one else ends up buried like Marcus. If you believe anything today, let it be that." The courtroom was still. Even Diddy didn't smile this time. Because for the first time in his career, power wasn't enough. Truth had a face. And it had just stared him down in front of the world. The verdict didn't shake the room. No gasps, no shouting, no slamming gavels. Just a hush so complete, it felt like the air had paused. The jury foreperson stood, cleared her throat, and read the words that would echo through headlines for weeks. Guilty on multiple counts related to obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and accessory to manslaughter. Diddy didn't flinch. Not a twitch. Not a blink. He sat frozen in that pristine navy suit, as if trying to hold together the last piece of a carefully curated image. But behind his stillness, something cracked. Maybe not his expression, but the illusion of untouchability. That shattered. Daryl didn't cheer, didn't cry. He sat still too, but in peace. For the first time in over a decade, his shoulders relaxed. His fists weren't clenched. There was no applause, no celebration, just release. Outside, the courthouse was chaos. Reporters swarmed, cameras rolled, headlines already being drafted in real time. Music mogul found guilty. Whistleblower destroys empire. One brother's promise. Daryl stepped into the light, blinking at the flashes. "Mr. Brooks, do you have anything to say?" He paused, looked right into the lens of the nearest camera. "My brother's name was Marcus," he said. "He didn't die for nothing." Then he turned and walked away. No fanfare, no book deal, no spotlight. Just a man who finally told the truth and survived to see justice served.